Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. And Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. The more time I spend reflecting on my life and all the mistakes that I've made, and the more honest that I am with myself, the more I realize that the things that I say and do, and my reactions to particular situations, as much as I hate to admit it, very often, usually, actually, has a whole lot more to do with me than the other person in that situation. I say this because I think that that's true for Peter in today's gospel lesson also. I am thinking that Peter's reaction to Jesus says a lot more about Peter than it does about Jesus, and I reckon that Peter's reaction says something to us as well. It's not too difficult to see and understand what's going on with Peter. I think he's scared. I think he feels overwhelmed by and unprepared for what's coming. And you know as well as I do that life sometimes does that to all of us. I can easily imagine Peter thinking to himself, when I signed up for this fish for people thing, this great suffering, rejection, and death, that's not exactly what I thought I was signing up for. That was never my plan. Miracles, yes. Suffering, let me check my calendar. I can't remember if I put suffering on my calendar this week. No, it doesn't look like I signed up for suffering this week. And friends, I figure that you know as well as I that sometimes life brings us stuff we don't sign up for. It takes us places we've never planned or wanted to go to. I suspect Peter is struggling with his faith even after the profound statement that he just made, trying to make sense of what he really believes, wondering if he has what it takes to meet the demands of faith in this moment. And you know as well as I that sometimes life sets those questions before us. I know what that's like, and I figure you do as well. We've stood next to Peter. We've known times in our lives when we felt unprepared for what we were facing. We looked down the road that was coming, and we didn't like what we saw. We wanted to cry out, "No, this is not happening. This cannot be. It must not be." Haven't there been times when you felt scared, unprepared, or overwhelmed by life? Haven't there been times when you just want to face, or where you just didn't want to face what life was bringing you? I think there's also been times where we haven't or didn't know whether our faith was up to the demands that life presents us. Love my enemy? I don't want to do that. Forgive not once? I don't really want to do that either. But not 7 times, but 77 times? Certainly don't want to do that. Turn the other cheek when the first one is still red and stinging? Don't want to do that. Imagine taking a snapshot of your life in that moment. What would it show? Would you like what you see? Is that a picture you want to frame and keep, or would just as soon throw that picture away? I'm often not at my best at those times, and I don't like those pictures of me or my life, and I often want to just throw those pictures away. And I'll bet you don't like those pictures either. There are the kinds of pictures that we would delete from our album of our life if we could. I think we all have those pictures in our lives. We certainly wouldn't want anyone else to see them. And my guess is that Peter, in his situation, if there were cameras then, would want a retake. And yet we all have those kinds of pictures in our lives. We've all looked at bad pictures of ourselves, pictures that show us to be less than or other than we know ourselves or we want ourselves to be. There is, however, more to us than that one picture can show. I suspect we know that. We don't just live it. We're too quick to see that one picture, that one snapshot in time as descriptive and representative of who we are and what our life is like. We take that one photograph of ourselves and say, this is me. This is my life. This is all there ever will be. We hold that picture as a final judgment or description of ourselves. And sometimes we take those kinds of photographs and hold them up to another and say, look at what you did. This is who you are. This is how I will always see you. But a single snapshot really doesn't tell the whole story, does it? No. Life is more, I think, like a movie. An ongoing story that is active, dynamic, changing, and unpredictable. There is more to Peter than the snapshot we are given in today's gospel, and there is more to you and me than those snapshots that we want to rip out of our life's albums. Every snapshot exists within a larger story. And that's true for Peter, just as it's true for you, and it's true for me. Today's gospel is just one snapshot of Peter. Peter takes Jesus aside and rebukes him, and Jesus turns and rebukes Peter, calling him Satan. You are the deceiver. You are the adversary. You are the tempter. You are out of line, Peter. Get behind me. Do you really believe that one picture is all there is to Peter? I don't. It's only 4 verses earlier that Peter is the confessor, the one who recognizes Jesus. You are the Messiah. Those are 2 very pictures of the same man taken from 2 very different angles. Remember the day Peter stepped out of the boat full of faith and walked on water, the same water on which Jesus walked. That's a picture worth framing and hanging on the wall. But if you took another picture just a few minutes later, you would see Peter sinking, scared, crying out for help. And Jesus saying, you of little faith, why do you doubt? Or how about the picture of Peter as the rock on which Jesus will build the church? Set that one next to the picture of the cock crowing, Peter's denial 3 times. I'm sure Peter would like to lose that snapshot of him sleeping in the Garden of Gethsemane while Jesus prayed and being awakened by Jesus' question, so you could not stay awake with me for 1 hour? Compare that to the picture of the one where Jesus says, feed my lambs, tend my sheep. It's not just Peter who has conflicting or contradictory pictures in his life. Remember the man who brings to Jesus his demon-possessed child, and Jesus tells him that all things are possible for the one who believes. The man declares, Lord, I believe. And that's a picture of faith. But the picture changes. Help my unbelief, the man says next. And who among us hasn't seen those 2 pictures in our life? Lord, I believe. Help me believe. And what about Mary, the mother of Jesus? How can this be, she asks when the angel announces her pregnancy. And then just a bit later she says, let it be with me according to your word. Jesus also experienced the conflicting snapshots of life. Compare 2 snapshots of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Father, remove this cup from me, and not what I want, but what you want. Look at the different snapshots of Jesus on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? And, Father, to you I commend my spirit. And it's not just them, it's us too. We all have those contradictory pictures in our life. Each one of us could go back and pick out the bad picture days of our life. I think of my senior high school picture. Could delete that, and that'd be great. I can't count the number of times people have come to me and described their life as a single picture, though. They describe themselves or their life through a particular event, which is fine, but then they so often make the leap that that distinction is all that they are and all that their life will ever be. Your life's a movie. It's not a picture. They allow that one snapshot in time to stand as a final judgment of who they are and who they believe themselves to be. So what if we took those snapshots of life for what they really are? What if we looked at them as simply one moment in time, a single still frame that is part of our life's movie? What if that one picture isn't a final judgment, but simply information about what is happening in us. Information about our fear, our wounds, our hopes, our needs, our struggles. What if it's just a picture of us at a particular time and place, trying to do the best that we can with what we had? I think that's okay. And it may not be our best picture. It may look as if we blew it, like we didn't try very hard, or that we weren't the person we wanted to be. But I think most of us do the best we can with what we have in the moments that are given to us. And sometimes life is really difficult, overwhelming. Sometimes life is scary, friends. Sometimes faith really does push us to our limits. Sometimes life really does give us what we never asked for and what we never even wanted. What if there is always more to that picture than what we often see, though? It would be so easy to look at the snapshot of Peter in today's gospel and say that Peter just blew it. He was not a good disciple. He was not faithful. He was out of line when he rebuked Jesus. He got called out by Jesus. That's probably not a picture Peter wants to carry around and show others. Certainly not in his senior year, Facebook page or yearbook. What if Jesus' rebuke of Peter, the sting of being called Satan, is really just Jesus saying, Peter, that's not who you are. I know you. You are more than what you have become in this moment. Wake up, brother. Claim your belovedness. Trust my calling of you. And return to yourself. Every picture has more than one interpretation. I think we all know that. We can look at those snapshots of our life and let them bind us to the past and forever label and judge us or another person. Or we can look at them and say, wow, that was just a terrible picture day. I shouldn't have worn that tuxedo that was 2 sizes too big. That's not really me, and it's not who I want to be. And we let those pictures call us back to ourselves, back to our center, back to our original beauty that God has given us. We let that bad picture call us into a new life and a new way of being. We have to reject that. And that's what Jesus is doing with Peter today, and that's what he is continually doing with us. Jesus is continually calling us back to ourselves, letting us see ourselves through his eyes, reminding us of who we truly are and who we can become. Most of the time, we look at those pictures and we know we stepped outside of ourselves. We betrayed ourselves. We violated our own integrity. We feel shame, disappointment, or regret. Those are not about punishment or judgment on Jesus' part. They reveal that we have touched the darkness within ourselves, but they are not our permanent condition. They are the pointers to something else, reminders that there is more than can be shown in a single photograph. So, friends, what do you see when you look through the album of your life? What are the snapshots of your life today that bind you to the past? What pictures have you let define you, your value, and your worth? Which pictures do you want to delete and never see again? What are your bad picture days that you try and hide from yourself and from others? There are the pictures that tell our secrets and display our wounds. They keep us up at night, reliving that moment, desperately trying to make it different. There is the one that we just can't get out of our mind, the memories that haunt us. Have you ever asked forgiveness for something and then asked again and again and again and again? That's probably about a bad picture day, frankly. As much as we might like to hide, delete, or Photoshop those pictures, they have some value for us. The very things that haunt us can become our teacher. The very things that we don't want to hear about ourselves can become a calling into new life. The very things we do not want to see about our life can show us a different way of being. What are the bad picture days of your lives? What are you looking at and holding on to today as the definitive picture of you and your life? Whatever those pictures might be, regardless of what they might show, they always exist in a larger story. It's a movie. No one would buy a ticket to the movie, watch only a single frame, and claim to have seen and understood the movie. So why would we ask that of ourselves and of one another? That's certainly not what Jesus does to Peter. The rock that sank in the waters of doubt is also the foundation of our church. The denier of Jesus is also the feeder of Jesus' sheep. Jesus sees more than the snapshot of the moment. And if that's true for Peter, it's also true for us. Maybe we should gather up those photographs we want to throw away and look at them one more time, this time through the eyes of Jesus, and look for what we've not seen before. The beauty hidden within the disfigurement, the light that shines in the darkness, the healing that comes from great suffering, the belonging that overcomes rejection, the life that arises from death. The picture of hope that stands amidst a landscape of despair.